G'day everybody, it's Ronnie, Rev Ron, speaking to you from Coburg Uniting Church here in the ghetto of Melbourne. We want to wish you all the very best with our love and support coming to you. Like all churches, we've obviously closed down to protect people's health in the age of coronavirus, but there's a lot of exciting things happening online. So with my colleague Josh, we are moving everything, services online, and we'll have a kind of a webinar feature as well on Zoom, but more about that later. I wanted to welcome you here to this place, our worship space, our sanctuary. We're a church that is challenging accepted beliefs, but more importantly, we're on about social inclusion through food, music, and embodying a spirit of blessing. So we believe that we should really build people up and uphold them and all people, and that for our church, we believe that the Christ of our faith was not anti-woman, nor homophobic, nor a climate change denier. So we try to help people to love Mother Earth and to fight for absolute equality between all people, regardless of orientation or gender. So welcome, glad that you're here.
Hi, I'm Josh. I'll be the video producer for Coburg Uniting Church during this online trial time. Ronnie mentioned he'd be in conversation with different people while delivering his message every Sunday. We may be doing some of that entirely online, but for this first week, here we are in Coburg Uniting Church, 2 meters apart. So I'll ask some questions and Ronnie will share his wisdom. Our first question is, Corona and consumerism, the two driving forces of our zombie apocalypse. How and why?
Thanks, Josh. I got this title for today's message, or the first speaking point today, from Russell Brand's excellent book on addictions. The comedian Russell Brand described how his theory is that we're all addicted to something. Some things more difficult and toxic than others, of course, but that we're sort of, our brains are wired to consumerism, that if I only get X, Y, and Z, then, and only then, I will be happy. And he's saying that the great spiritual teachers of all time have said that you are complete within yourself, that you are designed for success. And those areas where you are broken or feel incomplete, you can develop interpersonal skills to reach your destiny, the resources of character to meet your destiny. So our message, particularly with the coronavirus, is it also can act like rabid consumerism, in that it sometimes drives us into responses that can break our relationships. And the research from Australia, perhaps like in all countries, is this: that the rate of suicide, unemployment is spiking already. And with the danger, the triple danger also of small business people losing their businesses and their livelihoods, we need to find the character, the resources of character to meet our destiny. And to come back to that resourcefulness which is already within us, and which we can find by reaching out to others.
Our second question topic is about the hero's journey. Moving from zombie land to becoming an authority of your own, from childhood to adulthood, from immaturity to maturity. Could you take us through that, Ronnie?
Sure. A lot of these principles and ideas come from the late great scholar Joseph Campbell, wrote a great book called The Power of Myth, and a lot of our theology incorporates his insights about the hero. So the question that I have for you now is, are you going to let the machine flatten you out and rob you of your humanity? Or are you going to be a person of heart and insight? Someone who leads humanity through this threshold test, a test of the heart. Now, the machine. The machine is any institution, school, school, corporation, family, that functions in a way that has no heart and no compassion. The danger now with coronavirus is that it will not only break us down economically, but it has the potential to break humanity down spiritually, to rob us of what's best, which is the heart chakra. All the great spiritual teachers found a way to not be conformed, to dissent, not because they were bloody-minded, although some were, but really in the interest of upholding the heart and helping people live the best version of themselves. So the hero's journey says that I am not going to let an institution or a dominant person in my relationship set the agenda. That I will become an authority for my own life. So the hero's journey is not just a single deed that's heroic, like being a mother or saving a life, but the hero's journey is a life lived in continual self-discovery. I would add that in this particular time of corona and global warming, the hero also combines science and reason with emotion. So the argument that has the most logic and evidence behind it is the argument that should carry the day. In theology, a factual assertion must actually contain a fact. And so when we put our mind in touch with the mind of God, we bring together reason with emotion to thereby tame the more sort of animal, lizard-like brain that we can all revert to when we're afraid.
So, in that, you said one of your key messages, Ron, which is do not be conformed. Looking at Corona as a threshold test for the humanity of the heart, how can we show heart-based heroic leadership?
Yeah. An example of how this has happened is that I've been using the F word a lot lately, feminism. And it's been interesting to observe people's responses to the idea of feminism and religion, and breaking apart that unholy, what I call an unholy alliance between the two, but finding the feminist voice within Scripture. Long story short, Jesus was a feminist, and he believed in absolute equality between people of genders, and I would argue orientations. And in that way, he was a nonconformist in his own time. He was streets ahead of his time. He's streets ahead of our time. So that, to me, was an example of trying to find evidence that points us in the right direction, and not being conformed to maybe what we've learned from parents in childhood or what an institution tells us, but having an inquiring mind and a conscience, and listening to the views even of our enemies on matters like feminism or how to lead with the heart. So the story I have about heart-based leadership comes from a friend of mine. My friend Raymond in the US worked in the financial industry at a very difficult time to do so during the global financial crisis of 2007. He lost his job. There were no jobs in the financial industry in the US for years. And then he tells the rest of the story, which is this, that he washed cars, flipped burgers, and reached out to others, like supporting small business people in the United States during the global financial crisis with gift vouchers and buying stuff at their stores. He was leading with the heart, and eventually, in doing so, he found the resources to meet his destiny. He found that life was not all about him. If we hold fast to that which is good and true and perfect, it will lead to the resurrection after this crucifixion, the resurrection of the human spirit. So the heroic leadership, the heart-based leadership, is not living in fear, excessive fear and hatred, which can happen during times of economic depression, and personal depression. But finding ways to hold fast to that which is good and to strengthen our ways of connecting in ways that perhaps we hadn't even thought of before.
Talking about the hero's journey, what are its threshold tests? I know you've mentioned in the past combining reason with passion and continual self-discovery. What is the hero's ultimate aim when we talk about the hero's journey?
I would contrast this with the difference between, say, some celebrities, not all, a celebrity of a certain type and a hero. With a celebrity, it can become, or anyone, it can become narcissistic. Fame, fortune becomes about self-aggrandizement and advancing what's seen as one's destiny. The problem with that is you may never get to the true contents of your life, to your bliss. Contrast then the celebrity or a certain type of person with a hero. The hero's quest is this. It is to find enlightenment and an enhanced and widened awareness, not for your own release, not for your own nourishment alone, as important as that is, but to have the power and the wisdom to serve others. So when we talk about the threshold tests, the first one is to say, I've been living this life, what people tell me I should do, and there are plenty of people running around who never really listen to their heart, but are doing what their neighbor tells them to do, or what they think is the good life. It is to say to an individual, to you, where is your bliss to be found? It's to say that the Easter message, the message of Easter is, what you are living now in your self-definition is but a tiny fragment of what is possible for your maturity and your happiness. Now, what would that maturity look like? What brings depth and joy to your life, even in these times, the coronavirus and social distancing? That's the first threshold test, is to be able to ask those existential questions. What will I now be? What can I yet become with the help of a greater power, a deeper energy that's throughout all of life? I suppose the second threshold test is that we do have experiences that we talk about a lot here at Cover, the mystical experience, which is not airy-fairy, but the classic mystical experience sort of takes you out of your world, but then brings you back to it with a renewed insight and foresight about who you can yet become or what's needed in that particular situation. It could be listening to a great piece of music, it might be a random act of compassion, it might be a protest that has to do with global warming or against a multinational corporation. But the hallmarks of a mystical experience are that it gives you perspective, like a bird's eye view on your life. And it also shows you the pathway of your destiny and of what's possible, which might actually cost you something. But it will lead you to your bliss, to your promised land of a life of passion, an ecstatic and abundant life that perhaps you didn't even know was possible.
Our last question for today, Ronnie. What are those spiritual experiences, those spiritual awakenings that liberate you from yourself and give you back to yourself?
The world is full of people who have stopped listening. So they're not ready in religious terms to behold the beatific vision of who you are and who you can yet become and what's possible for humanity. And I include myself in that. I've stopped listening. So I think the challenge is really to listen not only to your neighbor and to the institution, but also to listen to the God within. And because the radiance and the energy of a greater power is in all things and beyond all things, it stands to reason, therefore, that we're never beyond the circumference of inspiration, even in our darkest moments. So the first thing I'd encourage is a strong sense of belonging, a strong sense of self, and a strong sense of meaning and hope. And that's what Coburg Uniting Church with other organizations and groups is trying to help people to achieve. And in that journey of meeting those four things, belonging, self, meaning, and hope, we believe that people do find their center. So they become a centered self without being self-centered. A famous theologian from the American Civil Rights Movement, African-American gentleman named Howard Thurman, put it like this. He said that if you allow someone to define the quality of your inner life, then you have handed to them the keys to your destiny. Take the keys back. Take the keys back. You are entitled to discover your bliss. And in doing that, that's not selfish, because when you come alive within yourself, then you bring other people alive. So the goal is to find a life welling up within you that is ecstatic and rich and abundant, so that you have a surplus of compassion to give to others, to move people out of the wastelands of living an inauthentic life. Those experiences can take many forms, but it is kind of stilling the surface noises of your life, to listen again to the harmony of the universe. As a survivor of Auschwitz once said, he was looking outside of his confinement in his barracks, and over the barbed wire flew a simple bird. And the bird landed right in front of his window. And it just kind of sat there with grace and grandeur. And with this simple bird landing on the sod, this heroic man said, and I realized that this tragedy, this Holocaust too, would one day come to an end. And there was a joy and a life underneath all things. Our deepest peace comes from a union or a communion with that energy that underlies and animates all living things. America's greatest psychologist, William James, years ago said that, and I'm merely paraphrasing him, but that's what we can all do. Calm the surface noises, come back to our true selves, to our divinity, and find the hero's adventure that awaits each of us, all of us.
On this Sunday, the 29th of March, 2020, Coburg Uniting Church's first online broadcast. Any last words and your message to your people?
We will hang on to ourselves, which is not just holding our heads high, but hanging on to the heart. I know that you will show tremendous leadership through this time. Our challenge is on the economic, but more importantly, the spiritual front, to help humanity pass through this threshold of the heart. It might be reaching out to others in practical ways, but it is most certainly through our spiritual practices, finding the hero within you. I look forward to joining with you online again and seeing you here gathering together when it's safe. God bless and all the best.